The panel, Lee Hughes, QPR CEO, and Club Ambassador Andy Sinton. Okay, we'll just go through the format for the evening as well. If you are watching on the stream, you can tweet us throughout the evening using the hashtag QPR Fans Forum and send your questions in to us, and we'll put those to the panel over the course of the next hour or so. Also, when you came in, your names were entered into a bowl for a raffle. At the end of the evening, me and Andy will be drawing out a couple of names. There's a signed QPR shirt up for grabs and also a £100 club store voucher up for grabs as well. So we'll sort that out at the end of the evening. In terms of the layout for this evening, I think it worked well last time we did the fans forum in terms of the type of questions that were coming in. Again, it was similar areas, so rather than to ensure we don't get bogged down in one area and unable to cover other areas, the four main areas that have been brought up through the questions that have come in are the managerial situation, the shift in expectation this season, Warren Farm and Old Oak Common update, and financial fair play. So we'll be going through those four areas. After that, if you feel that there are further questions within those four that you want to put to the panel, you're more than welcome to do so. Or if there are areas completely separate from that, then by all means raise your hands and we'll be going through those questions as well. Initially, we'll go through those four. But firstly, to talk about the elephant in the room, the elephant not in the room, Les Ferdinand can't join us, unfortunately, Lee. He's stuck in Malaysia. Just explain to us the situation with regards to Les.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, start off by apologies for Les and apologies for my appearance tonight as well. I had a member of staff today say, God, it looks like you just got in from a big night out. It was not a big night out. We've just flown back from Malaysia, which I arrived early this morning. I saw Les yesterday and I thought, you're not making this flight. He looked awful. Contacted him again this morning. He's had to cancel his flight tonight as well. So we thought originally it might have been maybe something he ate, but it's obviously something a lot worse than that. So don't know. He can't. We ate the same things. He can't handle it as well as I can. So he's, wish Les well. Hope he gets better soon, and then I'll try and teach him how to keep up with me from here on in.
And in terms of, obviously there are questions that the supporters wanted to ask directly to Les Ferdinand.
We discussed yesterday morning. It was pretty clear it wasn't going to make the flight. What do we do? I thought it's too late notice to cancel this or to postpone it. I thought people have already made arrangements to be here. So what we thought is we'll arrange an alternative time so Les can handle questions. And I want to do another one of these anyway. We can both get together. But we realized, by the time we reschedule, we're into Christmas, then people's availability, we're into heavy fixture schedule, then you're into January. So it's like, you know what? We're going to go ahead with this one. We'll find ways to get more specific football questions that I really can't give you insight to via Les. And like I said, we will plan another one of these in the future as well.
Okay, great. And firstly, we'll speak to you in a second, Lee. Firstly, Andy, you're here to answer questions as best you can regarding football matters, perhaps more generally than Les in terms of specifically. You're here as a club ambassador, have been since the summer. Enjoying your role?
Oh, I love it. It's great to be back. Special club for me. Said from day one. Love the work that I've been done. It's sort of encompassing various sort of roles. Done a lot of work with the community. Andy Evans and his community trust are doing some fantastic work. Been fortunate to be invited and be all involved at the training ground, albeit on a low-key basis. Academy sort of situations, I'm up there having a look at match day, hospitality, dealing with the sponsors and box holders and places like this. So yeah, it's been fantastic. Never a dull moment. But as I say, it's great to be back at a club that holds a special place in my heart anyway.
Okay, and Lee, you've been at the club now for 6 months after joining us from Burnley. I know you've had a number of meetings with different fans groups. See,
this just shows you how much, it already seems like 6 months. Tomorrow's my 4-month anniversary,
4 months. It feels like 6 months for the
staff.
That's what I thought. 4 months. How have you found it? I know you've had a number of meetings with the fan sites, etc. What have you learned from that?
No, it's been good. I've really enjoyed it here. As I said, tomorrow, the big 4-month anniversary. Coming in here, I got warned by fans and by people who used to work here. Whoa, you got to watch the fans there. Boy, you'll need your flak jacket down there. I said, you know what I found though? I've actually really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the banter with the fans. You'll occasionally see me out there in the concourses. What I found is, and this is what I really like about this place, is you're really serious about your football, but yet you don't take yourselves too seriously. You want to have fun. You want to have a good time. You want to have a bit of a crack. And I thought I really enjoyed that. So we did the Tiger Cup walk a couple of months ago. Again, gave me a chance to really sit down and not sit down. I didn't sit at all. I was walking to walk with some fans, get into some conversations about them. And what I found is, I quite enjoy the outlook that QPR fans have. So I've very good. Yeah, I was going to say the same about you. So great. I found the staff here very committed staff. Not a lot of politics, which is something I really hate. Internal politics. They all just get on with it. Very committed. We've lost a few people over the summer, and as part of cost cutting, because we really need to squeeze the assets as much as we can. There's not been replacement, so I'm asking people to perform more and more with less and less, and everybody's has really risen to the challenge so far, and so we need to keep going in that vein. The owners, just got back from seeing them. Really like them. Great bunch of guys. Very different. The two co-chairmen in particular, very different. They complement each other really well, is what I find. Because you guys know, you social media guys, you'll know Tony. He likes to be out there and on the front foot, and he's got these grandiose plans and things like that. And I think you need that in terms of a visionary. Then you've got Ruben that offsets that, saying, well, let's just. I really want to take a look at this. We need to be a bit cautious in our approach. Let's analyze this. Both of them have incredibly analytical minds, and what I found myself thinking last night when I came home was that it's not so much, it's not just what they say. You can always tell us about the questions people ask about how they're going about something, and they ask the right questions, and they really delve deep. And I thought, yeah, fair enough, good guys, genuinely interested in the well-being of the club, really desperate for success, but on the other hand, what's best for the long-term interest of the club as well. So I'm sure there'll be a few questions about that as we go on. Talk specifically about my role as a chief executive. Chief executives' roles in football can be very different depending on the club you go. I've always viewed myself as an enabler, facilitator, guy that takes things forwards, brings people together, and manages the risk. Because I think the important thing, and probably why I've done okay for myself in football, it's really in England particularly, everybody wants to be an expert on football. Everybody knows something about football. It would be like me talking about the NFL and American football, and I know how I get with it. But whereas me, I know what I don't know, which is pretty easy when you know as little as I do, and I make sure that is compensated by getting experts in to do jobs and making sure they have the capability to do their job. Where that expertise is there, and I want to just have a sense check, I put in procedures and protocols and policies that make sure that we are analyzing it properly, and that any risks associated with that are being brought to the fore. That's it. That's my job in a nutshell. Make sure we don't blow our brains out, financially. Everything's being done correctly. If there's a risk, well, I don't know what makes a good player, but we have a scouting system that says you need to make sure you look at the player X number of times, home and away, blah, blah, blah. The scouts are all uniform in their appraisal of the player. Then somebody goes out and looks at it. That really mitigates the risk for me. So that's me. When I first came here, my role really was about discovery. I want to know what's the club about, what makes it tick, and as Paul said before, we talked about meeting with fans groups, but not just fans group. I like to get out there and just talk to people, the everyday person coming in through the concourse. So I've done a bit of that. We formed something called the Fans Consultation Committee. And basically what that is members of the fans group plus members of the various websites. Everybody else has literally been picked at random, so I get a good cross section where I want someone who is female, season ticket holder, someone who sits over in the Ellerslie. I want someone who sits from corporate hospitality, a real broad mixture of fans that come in, so that I can it's impossible for me to talk to 15, 16, 18,000 people, but with that group of 12 people, I can get some good dialogue going. It gives me good cross-section representation of the fan base. that's been proved very successful. We've had a couple of meetings, got some great feedback from them, and one of the things I wanted to do was about define success for the club. Yeah, because a lot of what the feedback I was getting at the time was about, we need to get back to our roots. We need to rediscover the values that are QPR. Well, my question is, what are those roots? What are those values? So we've come together. I've put together a vision and strategy statement, and I want to roll it out to the staff. Original goal was to have it done by the end of this month. I seriously doubt I'll hit that deadline now, because kind of everything's on hold at the moment for other reasons, which again we'll come on to. But one of the things I'm really keen to establish is, what is the pathway to success? And if I asked you guys in terms of the size of this club, is it a big club? Is it a small club? You might get lots of different answers. But I've got for the last 10 years, I've done an analysis to try and figure out, where are we in the football pyramid? Out of the 92 clubs in the league, in the professional league, by measuring it in support, by footfall through the turnstiles, where would we stand? Anybody want to call out a guess? From one, I'll tell you, number one is from 2005 till there, it's Man U every year. So that's number one. Exactly. Well, size of the ground, yes, but I'd be saying size of the ground matters if we were filling it every week, but we don't.
Yeah. They now get all the own revenue, whereas before the other teams used to get a percentage of that. So a team like us only get 18,000. We're not getting no revenue in. They're getting all their revenue. We're not getting nothing.
Yeah, but in terms of the size of the support for the club, that's what I'm trying to raise your baseline.
You sell out all your away support, but you still ain't getting nothing back on that day.
In a table, we'd be about 30, 35.
Great guess. 31 is the best. Yeah. And it goes between 31 and 41. We vacillate in between there. And when you look at the clubs around us, that of a similar size, you're looking at, if you go back 10 years ago, you're looking at Huddersfield, Plymouth. The next year it was Bristol City and Preston, Crystal Palace and Cardiff, Watford and Preston, Watford and Barnsley. Portsmouth, that's a very similar size club as well. Charlton, Burnley, Ipswich, Bolton. You get an idea of the size of clubs we were. There are some pretty big clubs in the championship that, even as championship, measured in the top 20. Clubs like Derby is a good example. Leeds is another example. Yeah, great example. They are really top 20 clubs in that particular pyramid. So for me, it's like, right, okay, this is where we are. Anything to get up above that top 30 then, is that a definition of success, or is a definition of success in the Premier League? And that's one of the things we really need to kind of do. I'd say when we're in the Premier League, we're probably outperforming where we are in terms of the size of a club, where we are right now. And a lot of people told me, yeah, I agree with that, actually, because that's what we're known for. We do outperform. We've always batted above our weight. That's what made us different. We've been seen as the perennial underdogs. Bit of a maverick style to us. A little bit of West London swagger, as how somebody put it. People like Stan Bowles coming through. It was entertaining type of football. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm getting a feel for things now. And those are the roots that I'm talking about that we need to try and get back to. And and Les, couldn't ask for a better guy than Les. He came up through in the club. He knows the club inside and out. That's his vision as well. So those are the type of things we're trying to put into place for long-term planning and long-term vision to get the club back to where it was before. There's one thing also, I think, a lot of people have said, well, Americans, they market and they do this and they do that. Would you be bringing many American type of activities into QPR? Quite frankly, I think American sports could there's one thing that could definitely learn from English football. And I've not seen anything else like it in any other sport in the entire world, which is the central part that a football club plays with its community. You'll have, Major League Baseball or an NFL team who supports something, a particular charity like the United Way, and they might send a player out to a school. But I've not seen anything where the club itself actually delivers so many programs, whether it's learning, reading programs, going into schools to do their physical activity programs, working with youth at risk on diversionary programs, doing things on diversity, healthy eating. Those are all things that normally a lot of times government delivers, but actually football clubs in England do it. And for me, that's what really, really captured me here. That's what this club does a fantastic job of that. English football, I think in general, does a fantastic job at that. I think we get sold short a lot of times without realizing how important that is. I think it's a fantastic model. Andy does a great job here with the club's community trust, and it's one of the reasons why the viability and sustainability of a football club is so, to me, critically important. You know, that says 1882 down there. It's been going on for a long time. In 2082, some other guy will be sitting up here, and there'll be another group of people out there firing questions. But it's important that club is still here in 2082. You know, what disturbs me is when I see things like, you know, Portsmouth trying to reestablish themselves again, but virtually almost on the brink of extinction at one stage because of, you know, they were hell-bent for glory. I think I think Portsmouth is a fantastic club, really central tier to that community down there. I don't know how they take it coming from an ex-scummer, being at Southampton, to hear me say that, but I do respect what they do, and I think it's a fantastic base in the community. And I see that as us too. I see the work we do in West London and the Shepherd's Bush area in particular very, very critical to the club going forward, and that for me also has to form part of the long-term vision. As I said, did establish the Supporters Consultation Committee to kind of as a sanity test for me to make sure I've got my finger on the pulse. That's not to say I don't want to hear from everybody, because I do want to hear from everybody. But I got to make one thing clear: just because I hear and just because you talk to me doesn't necessarily mean I implement everything that I'm told, because I have to weigh up the right decision. And I do care what you think. I just don't care what you think about me. So if I have to irritate somebody in the best interest of the club, I'll do it, you know, because I'll take success over popularity any day of the week. So, you know, I apologize in advance if I ever irritate anybody, but trust me, if I make a decision or I do something, it will absolutely have gone through a critical analysis and say, right, this will be in the best interest of the club of why we do this. So with that, how did you want to work it now? I've said my spiel.
With regards then to the best interests of the club,
Yeah.
one of the major aspects is the managerial situation. You've just come back from Malaysia this morning. You've been out there with Les Ferdinand and with the owners. How did that go, and where are we at in terms of the new manager?
It's very, very constructive. Good. Like I said, my job is about eliminating the risk, and I've been asked to help with this project and get my input into it, which I'm happy to do. It's what I'm here for. You know, if the manager needs to lean on me, if Les needs to lean on me, if the owners need to lean on me, if the head of community, head of commercial, whoever, I'm here to try and help out whoever I can and bring everybody together. I just explained the way I've done it at previous clubs. It started at Fulham, it's gone all the way through, and it's come out with some very, very good results. And it's just literally, first of all, you have to establish what you want from a competency level from a manager. Just like you would do any other job in HR if you're recruiting for somebody. You get those competency levels down, you describe what the attributes are. You don't worry about, does he know, our saying, could he get the players in from Arsenal in the loan market? Believe me, there are some clubs that have gone and recruited in that way. We think we'll get players from them. He knows Jose Mourinho, we'll get players from Chelsea. Bad way to do it. Perfect way to do it, Swansea. Have a philosophy. This is how they do things. Boom. They bring in managers that fit in with that philosophy and how they do things. So we literally have the components of that philosophy written down. I've got my set piece interview questions to try and assess them on a scale of this is how they fit into the philosophies. There'll be certain things that are weighted more heavily than others. And then literally, a bit like Prozone stats with players, doesn't tell you the whole story, but it gives you a good guide. And then you can dig deeper. So right now there's a very long list. We'll cut that list down to a short list where Les and I do the interviews. We'll get that down to a process where there's 4 or 5 for the final second interviews with me, Les, and the owners. And then that's how we'll come up with our manager. But there's a definite process in place. Timeline is as soon as we can get the right guy in. What I wouldn't want is to say, yeah, we're going to have somebody in next week, the week after, and it not to happen, or we rush it because, oh my God, we said we'd have somebody in situ by this time. Quick, we got to appoint somebody. Need to look at this as a long-term appointment, and so we really need to make sure we get it right.
Is there any level of urgency in terms of bringing in the new man in terms of this season?
There's a sense of urgency. I call it urgency, but not haste. You know, because it's urgent that we bring somebody in, but you don't want to. What you don't want to do is go hell bent for leather, and you overlook something or you make the wrong choice because you put an artificial deadline in front of you. Neil's come in to help us out. fantastic that he's done that, and he's done just that. I am thankful to Neil that he has come in to help us. He's there. Chris originally brought him in. Fair play to Chris. He recognized, right, I want to get some help in, and Neil has just said, look, I'm a safe pair of hands. I'll help the club out. No, I don't want this job permanently. I've got other things going on. Yes, I would like to be involved, and I'm here to help the club out.
Today it was announced that he's brought Kevin Blackwell in to assist him. I think some fans would look at that and say, well, if he's an interim head coach, why is he bringing in backroom staff?
Yeah, I'm not. When you ask a guy to help and he says, okay, I've identified this area where I could use some help, and this guy complements my skill set, well, I'm not going to turn and say, no, you can't do that. He's here to help. If that's what he needs to assist him to take the club forward, I'm not going to second guess him. Guy's been a manager for a long, long time.
Okay, a question from James Rutherford. Do we recognise that if a manager is any good, the likelihood is he'll be in employment, and so may need to pay a bit of compensation to get a manager like Rowett, he's given us an example, who's exceeded expectations?
Well, obviously, I would never contact a manager or his agent while he was in employment, because that would be illegal. But I think the key is you want the best guy for the job. You're not doing it on the basis of, all right, let's only look at managers who are out of work right now. I would look at managers, but you do the whole thing, but it's about getting the best person for the job.
So the club are looking at managers currently in employment as well as...
That would be illegal if we contact a manager in employment. What are you trying to say? This is recorded, isn't it?
Okay. Moving on. A question from Paul Dunstan. Who runs the club, the fans or the board? And what will the board do the next time the fans are unhappy? The club's real supporters could see progress was being made by Ramsey. It was going to take time and patience. What the clubs need is stability and backbone to see the job through.
I agree with stability. I agree with sustainability. I agree with long-term planning. The only thing I would take issue with is saying that real fans can see something, because I think just because someone disagrees with someone else's position doesn't make them any less of a fan. Every fan has an opinion. In fact, if I ask 10 fans in this room an opinion on something, I get 20 answers. I absolutely guarantee it. So the fact that someone, one person might be saying, well, I can't believe you haven't done it weeks ago, and another person saying you needed to give them time, there'll be disagreements. But when the decision's made, it's made after doing a thorough analysis of it, and it was felt that was the right thing to do at the time, and so therefore the decision was carried out.
Okay, with regards to Neil Warnock's position, is it simply a case of he is here until a replacement is found for full-time head coach?
Yeah, Neil's got a firm commitment, initially now to the end of this month. Where it runs to after that, we have to, it depends on where we are in the process. But Neil's made it clear, I'm here to help. So again, you can only say appreciate that, and it's great that he thinks we've got so many people, former coaches, former players of the club, Les coming back, Andy coming back, Neil coming back. It actually does say something about the club when people say, actually, I'm here to help. That's nothing else. Andy's here to help. Les said, I don't need the cash. I'm here to help. That's what I'm here for. So there is something special about the club that does get that kind of reaction from people.
Okay, and with regards to Chris Ramsey, is there an opportunity for him to stay at the club, or has he left the club?
No, with Chris's personal situation, that's ongoing right now. It really wouldn't be proper for me to discuss it. All I can tell you is anybody who's ever met Chris will know he's a top-class individual, really, really good guy, and he does offer a lot of value. So, with Chris, we'll continue in dialogue and try to work out, what's best for him and best for the club. If we can make it a win-win situation, then great for everybody.
Okay, with regards to the shift in expectation, it's probably more a question for Les Ferdinand, and that will be brought up when we have Les in front of us. But from a board's perspective, speaking on behalf of the board, the fans feel there's mixed messages coming from the club. Initially it was about rebuilding, now it seems to be about promotion this season. What are the club's aims?
Yeah, my observation on that would be, when I came in, that's exactly what it was. It was about, we're going to try and rebuild this, send it forward, take it forward. That costs cash, though. A lot of what we, would have been predicated on player sales. We still have a lot of big hitters with a lot of Premier League experience. The expectations, therefore, if those players don't go, you don't have the influx of a lot of cash coming in, because that little beast that's further down the road that'll come up shortly, the FFP, that's still applicable for this year as well. Don't forget. So we're trying to get in there for that. Is you're saying right? We've got all these guys. They didn't go. They're still here. We have a squad that's perfectly capable of getting promoted. We need, and this is the best shot we're going to have right now, because the resources are there. The biggest part of the parachute payment is there. The existing resources are there already from guys who have experience. So therefore, that is really what caused the shift in expectations.
Okay, Andy, how does that affect the players? As a former player, when at the start of the season it seemed to be about rebuilding, then the transfer window went better than anyone could have expected, and then it seems to be about achieving promotion, top 6.
Everybody except the finance director.
How would it affect the players? The players would, certainly the new ones, would have been probably enticed, if that's the right word, or sold what the club was expecting or whatever. But the players who come through the door will look, they'll analyse themselves, they'll look at the squad. Players, contrary to what some people might think, players aren't stupid. They'll have looked at the squad, and once that transfer window closed, and the likes of, if I can name them, Charlie stayed, Phillips stayed, Rob Green stayed, Fur's loan move fell through, they would have looked and thought, you know what, right, that's out the way now. No one's going anywhere for a few months. We've got a squad that is capable of challenging. I wouldn't sit here and say we're good enough or we should go straight up, because it's a really, really tough league. But I think we've got a squad who's capable of challenging. Certainly doing better than what we've been doing over the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks. And it's interesting to hear Clint, as club skipper, the other day saying the players have got to now step up to the plate. I saw Rob Green's interview the other day where he said the players are desperate to turn this sort of slump that they're in around really, really quickly. So the players will be aware that they are underachieving or underperforming in terms of performances and results. Ultimately, the business that we all love and watch and support, the manager sometimes carries the can for that. But for the players to be saying that and recognise it, I think they realise there's a big responsibility on themselves to at least perform better than what they have done and give the fans something to really hang on to. Because, as I say, I think we're, and this is just me as a fan, I watch as a fan, even though I'm back at the club in the role that I am, I watch as a fan, and I think we should be certainly challenging in the top 6. But there's some good teams out there, and every game in this league you've got to be at it. If you're not at it in this league, you will get beat or you will come unstuck. There's no easy games anywhere. As we've seen, teams have come here and shut up shop. Teams have come here and frustrated. Teams have played us off the park when we've had a couple of really poor performances. But every game in this league, I believe this is the toughest league probably in Europe to get out of. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we're in it. And we're fighting amongst another 10 or 12 teams who all think they should go up as well. So that's where it's tough.
Okay.
I think when we talk about, and you're absolutely right, we talk about good enough or able to compete, shoot for the top 6. The problem is, there are 9 or 10 other teams that will say exactly the same thing, and they'll all be right. So it really is a tough one. And no matter how much effort you put in, how much resource you invest, only 3 of us are going up.
Okay, question from Liam Bolger. Is the real mandate, in terms of what can be achieved this season, delivered down from the board, who are concerned that the short-term financial stability of the club is severely under threat again due to the reduced revenues, FFP, and the failure to offload key players during the summer, and therefore a return to the Premier League and the Premier League money is seen as the only route to survival and therefore a must-achieve target for this season?
Can you repeat that question?
I'll generalise it.
If you wouldn't mind.
The question is basically, is it the board saying we have to go up this season because we need the Premier League money?
Okay, great, thanks. I think it's the board saying that this represents a very good opportunity given the resources that we have. Of course, the Premier League money makes a tremendous amount of difference for a club going forward. No matter where you are in the league, no matter how much money you have, next year's Premier League money is going to go through the roof with the new contract that's coming into place. So, it's always strange. Every 3 years, you hear teams say, "Oh, we really got to go for it now," as if the previous contract wasn't enough. It wasn't astronomical. You can bet probably in 4 years' time, when the next new TV deal comes in, it'll be going, "Wow, look at it this year. We really have to do it now." But every year, it's the same thing. it's a big discrepancy between being in the Championship and being in the Premier League. It's a huge discrepancy in terms of resource availability. And what I'd like to see, if we were fortunate enough to be in that position again, is quite a bit more investment in the infrastructure as well, and taking the club forward.
Okay, it might be worth you explaining the detail behind this question for those that perhaps aren't aware of it. Given that fans have access to companies' house stocks and have been digesting some pretty major news from there this week, why haven't we heard anything official from the club?
Oh, we're talking about the debt transfer.
Yeah,
that's probably some of the best news I've heard, but it got brought up, and Ruben in particular just said, well, it's just the right thing to do. We're just doing it. And Ruben would be ticked off because I'm even mentioning his name, because like I said, Ruben is very much in the background doing the work. And he just, from a capital standpoint, well, all we're doing is taking it from debt to equity. Like, yeah, but that's major. As a chief executive, I'm thinking, yes, because chief executives, we like equity. We debt, no. Equity, yay. But it makes the club's balance sheet much stronger. So
what exactly, for those that perhaps don't know, what exactly does that mean, turning it from debt into equity?
Well, one of the things people had always said was, there's a lot of debt hanging over us. That money needs to be paid back. What if something happened? What if someone, even though it was debt to the existing shareholders, what if they, something happened and they called in that debt? What if they needed to pay somebody else off? Now that it's equity, it's basically part of the stock and the makeup of the club. So the balance sheet looks significantly better than what it did before. And it's one of the things when you talk about long-term sustainability, when you don't have that debt hanging over you, but instead it's part of the capital makeup of the club, it makes it look, it's very, very, very good. So it's a major cleanup of the balance sheet. It's something I'm quite frankly delighted about. But our co-chairman just kind of took it in stride, like, well, yeah, it's just the best thing for the club to do. I think that probably demonstrates their commitment going forward as well into the long-term aspirations of the club. So I can only look at that one as we can give it a big thumbs up.
Is that linked at all to FFP?
No. Good argument, though.
Okay.
Yeah. Could say, yeah. Well, you worried about clubs being sustainable because that's one of the purposes of FFP. You say, look what we've done. See how sustainable we've made it? We've eliminated the debt.
Moving on to FFP then, from James Walsh on behalf, I'd imagine, of most people. What is the latest situation?
FFP, it's an ongoing, and it's going to be ongoing for a while. I think somebody asked me before, and I didn't want to give specific dates out. Yes, I do know specific dates about when the earliest that the Financial Dispute Commission can actually sit down and meet. However, there is a confidentiality agreement with the Football League on the things, and I don't want something innocuous like a date coming out and them saying, "Hey, you're in breach of the confidentiality agreement." But it's a very emotive subject on both sides. I've got guys that I'm having to deal with that I not only respect but genuinely like. That we're having arguments, negotiations. What's the best way forward? You've got your point of view. I've got mine. We both think we're right. How do we do it? And I have to say the discussions, they've been constructive. There's never been finger pointing or animosity about them. It's been done in a very, very constructive way. Well, of course, we still would like to try and get this resolved without resort to an FDC. But like I said, both sides feel, well, they've got good arguments. So that's just something that we have to wait to see how it pans out.
Okay, and for those reasons, it's impossible to put any sort of timescale on it.
It's down to, like I said, there's an earlier stage that a committee can meet. Then it's going through all the evidence, going through the arguments. It's them sitting. It's them maybe recalling the parties as the mechanism rolls along. So it could go on for a while.
Okay.
Depends whether you think we'll win or lose.
A question from Indiars. If AirAsia and Tune Group suffer from prolonged financial problems, are there any planned safeguards to ensure the long-term survival of the club?
That probably got answered with the question before last. With now it's not tied. It's equity now as opposed to debt. So that issue is completely gone.
Okay. Warren Farm, Old Oak Common, from David Webber. Can someone clarify what the current situation is with the new training ground and new stadium? Will they become a reality?
Right. Let's deal with the training ground first. I've gone on record before. I will go on record now. I will put my head squarely on the chopping block, and I will say, if I do nothing before I leave this club than deliver better training facilities, that will be it. I think it's absolutely critical from a player development standpoint that we get good training facilities in order. I know there's still some major hurdles that have already been overcome with Warren Farm. The latest one, when they referred it to the National Planning Policy Committee, which has now ticked it off. There's still a planning application that a local anti-group put in about putting a public pathway across, which needs to be heard. And there's still the possibility it could be called in. So we've still got a few. Called in by the Secretary of State is how it works. We still have a few things to go over, but I will keep badgering and keep pushing that one as long and as hard as I can, because for me that's a critical piece in our strategy going forward. As regards to the stadium, I've now, when I first came, obviously the first couple of months, getting to grips with the club and how it runs. Now getting more and more involved with the stadium, and it's very, very complicated piece of mechanics that need to happen to go through this. It involves 4 different local authorities, which is, well, actually 3 local authorities plus the GLA, which is a first for me. I've dealt with planning issues before, but I've never had to do it with 4 different political entities. Like I said, it's complicated. You also have a competing landowner who doesn't have control of the area either, whose idea is, well, yeah, but I think I'd make more money without a stadium than with a stadium there, so I really don't want the stadium. So, you know, it's difficult with him. I don't think he wants to be convinced either way. He's obviously put through his master plan, which wouldn't include the stadium, which I think went in Monday. Yeah. Monday, I'm pretty sure. So that is a continuing saga. Like I said, it is complex. The one thing I would be reluctant to do, it's a bit like playing poker. You don't want to tell everybody what your hand is, and you don't want to play your hand too soon. But there are things in place. We do have a strategy behind it, and we will keep pushing it forward. That, however, with Crossrail and HS2 and everything else that gets thrown in there, it is going to take a little while. To develop it full stop, it's going to take a while. You also have a mayoral election coming up in May, which could put a different spin on it as well. So we have to see what happens with that.
Okay, I think most fans recognise that certainly with the stadium it is very much a long-term vision. In terms of the training ground, I think supporters are getting frustrated because they've heard about it for quite some time now, and a lot of fans are saying, I'm not going to pay any attention to that until I actually see a fork in the turf.
Does that mean nobody will ask me any more questions about it?
I wouldn't go that far. Oh. But in terms of a time scale for that, is there any idea?
Yeah, I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't on that. If I say, yep, boy, we're gonna turn the spade by the 1st of July, and then it doesn't happen, and you said it'll be the 1st of July, more empty promises. But if I don't commit, you say always being non-committal and evasive. But I don't know how things can work out. One, on the existing planning application that's there right now, I'd like to think we've already got the National Policy Committee tick off from it. I'm hoping that it goes our way again. 2, I don't know what's going on in terms of the thing being called in with the Secretary of State, but we do need to make sure all the obstacles are going. Now, one thing I am absolutely dead keen on doing, though, is what I don't want to do is, it's not my style to be going to the owners every 5 minutes and saying, we need another cash call, we need another cash call, we need another cash call. This thing needs to be viable. Therefore, I'll be looking at our own financing and our own self-financing plans to how we make this happen. I've done it at other clubs with how we've done it, various mechanisms for making that happen. But before I can do that, I need to know for certain I've got something to go to funders with to say, this is what the game plan is. This is what we're paying right now in rent anyway with 2 sites. I want to consolidate this into one. You can see that the cash flow supports it. So let's sit down and talk turkey. But until I've got something substantive to actually take to them, nobody wants to speak to me.
Okay, regarding the stadium, James Rutherford, does the board recognise that rather than handing flyers to QPR fans in the area, they should have got Mendes and the Car Giant team on side?
While that's posed as a question, that sounds like it's having a pop. At the end of the day, a guy's got a competing interest. It's not in his interest for us to do that and to say, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you talk about this? I don't know what happened before. I would imagine there probably were attempts to do it, but he had his own ideas.
He's a Rangers fan as well, isn't he? He's a QPR supporter.
I know a lot of people who are supporters of clubs. In fact, there's one in C Club that said, well, what about doing some sponsorship, this and that? He goes, I keep my business and my club separate. I thought, fair enough. It's probably why he has a lot of money and I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's a wealthy supporter.
Okay, in terms of the managerial situation, shift in expectation, Warren Farm Old Oak and FFP, they've been covered. Before we go on to other areas, if any of you feel there are questions within those 4 topics that you feel still need to be covered, if you just raise your hand, Matt has got a microphone, so we'll go to you first. And if we just wait for the microphone for those on the stream so they can hear the question as well. Okay?
Yeah. Lee, you spoke very well, I've got to say that. With the training ground, my main concern is there's something called the Heathrow third runway, which actually goes right through the training ground. So I think, have you got a plan B for another site for the training ground if we can't do one farm?
Well, there's 2 things I would say on that. This is almost one way you want to turn the microphone off. Is one, I would not want to let our position down, having worked so hard to get where we are on Warren Farm. Because one thing people would like to ask is, well, if you have a plan B, why don't you do that? Right now, there's not a lot of metropolitan open land or greenfield land or anything else that we can develop on because we've had a look. It'd be foolish not to try and have a plan B, but right now, I can't see where it would go. I'll look because quite frankly, I'd much rather have a freehold interest in land than I would with a leasehold interest in land, even though it is 200-year lease, which is the next best thing.
One other concern is some of the figures been bouncing around about the training ground being 50-60 million pound in costs. They just seem to...
That's nowhere near that.
Well,
No.
This is one of my other concerns, that the training ground costs seem to be spiraling out of control.
No, it's nowhere. That was way overestimated.
What?
I've already done the calculations based on what we pay in rent right now. If we did a 20-year bond, we'd repay the training ground costs.
Right, okay, that's good to know, because I just thought that the costs were spiraling out of control of a budget.
No, that's like that's so way beyond what it is that.
It has been reported to that, though.
Yeah. There was an original scheme, though. I think there was one that got planning permission a couple of years ago, maybe. That might be the scheme you're talking about.
Yeah, there was an initial plan was put in.
Okay, that's it, right. No, the scheme that we've got in there is not the all singing, all dancing thing. This is a very doable scheme for considerably less cost than that, which is why it's affordable and why I think the club can afford to carry it.
I don't think that's actually been reported back to the supporters, to be honest with you.
Right, okay, right. I'll check with the lawyers, but I can't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to publish what we put in. It's because it should be a public document. I'll double check to make sure I'm not creating an own goal here. But if they say it's a public document, you can put it on your website if you want. I'll do that.
Yeah, I think the board has spoken about a reduced proposal being put forward.
Thank you.
Still looks good though.
Okay,
Very good.
Passed down here. Andy, from your point of view, while we're waiting, from a player's point of view, a lovely training ground, it makes a difference?
Well, without a doubt, training grounds now are unbelievable places for people to go to work. I don't like harping back, but we used to rent places. We used to have to clear beer bottles from when we trained on a Monday. We used to have to basically clear the pitch after people had played on a. They were
was that after one of the first team training sessions?
Yeah, exactly. Covered with mud. Now the training grounds, the purpose built, the pitches are numerous. They're immaculately tended. Now that has to be for the improvement of the player, and especially further down when you're trying to develop youngsters, they need good surfaces to play on to develop technical sort of players. So it can only be a good thing. And if you look at a lot of clubs in the country now, they invest heavily in their training ground structure and what's in there for the benefit of the player. Whether it's improving players to the degree that's been invested, that's another issue. But training grounds are a real important part of football clubs now for the development of any age.
Okay, great.
Lee talked about Swansea as a good example of a club with a playing style, and as managers came and went, they could build on that playing style. We haven't had a coherent playing style for a long time. will a new manager coming in have enough time to develop a playing style, or will he get the boot because he hasn't met the latest short-term plan for promotion this season?
I think with a new manager coming in, now that we really have the criteria, and I always like think in ink, so that is going to be, this is what we're all about, this is what we're doing, this is what you need to adhere to. As Les just said yesterday, we're talking to him, because we might go through 2 or 3 managers in the course of, say, a 5-year plan. But the important thing is we stick to our principles and we get managers in who adhere to what we want to do. That doesn't mean 2 or 3 managers because we've dismissed them. But sometimes, let's face it, sometimes a manager's going to come in and they're going to outgrow us and they're going to go somewhere else. And they move up to something bigger, a top 6 Premier League team or something like that. And I must be clear on this. That will, that is what we have to aspire to be. We can't be afraid to embrace that. Same with players coming in. At some point, a player will be sold who develops will be going, we keep selling our best players. And chairman of Burnley had a great one from that when a fan said, Mr. Kilby, you keep selling our best players. And he said, yeah, because nobody wants to buy the bad ones. but that's it. You have to have a revenue stream coming in to support the club going forward. And really, Bill Kenwright only last year said, right, Everton is no longer a selling club. But you think how long Everton's been in the Premier League to finally get established where they said, you know what, we don't need to sell players anymore. We can afford to keep them in-house and to take the club forward. Yeah.
Okay, Vic?
Yeah. If the thing is about changing managers maybe 2 to 3 times, why do we consist in giving them 3-year contracts?
Yeah, I'm not saying it would
I mean,
change
the last one, we give him a 3-year contract. We didn't know how he was going to get on.
That was an example. I said you might have 2 or 3 managers. You could have one
but
manager
if that's
in
an
the whole thing.
example, if that happens, why give him a 3-year contract in the first place and then have to pay him off at the end of it in the money structure we're in?
It depends on how the contract really is structured. Sometimes you see things say it's a 3-year contract, but there'll be this, that, liquidated damages clause in the event something happens. And by the way, I'm not saying there is one in Chris's because I wasn't involved with it. It happened before my time. But I do know in constructing contracts that sometimes it might say a 3-year contract, but if somebody comes in and says you pay this much, boom, that's it. Then he's able to go. Likewise, if it didn't work out, you said you had to pay him off. It's that amount, and that's what it is.
Okay, but no one ever knows that. They just they just say it's a 3-year contract. So then you're paying compensation for every manager we get in that we get rid of. So
possibly, I'd rather look at it as a positive and say we're going to get managers in that are going to be in demand from other clubs, and therefore we want to keep them here. Yeah.
Okay, if you have got a question, just raise your hand and Matt will bring over the microphone while we're waiting. A question on Twitter from Roy Glover. Easy question. None of the big 4 issues. When do we get to see the new badge?
The new badge. That is ongoing. We've got, I've had the first series of designs, which we showed to the Supporters Consultation Committee. They had two feedback. Well, actually, they had more than 2 pieces of feedback. First of all, they said, just because a survey says something like, by the way, the survey majority, everybody said, needs to be round, needs to have hoops. And someone pointed out, well, just because it's on a survey that, we like hoops, doesn't necessarily mean we want to see it on the badge. So every style that you have in every sample, don't show them all with hoops. Give people something, because the idea is we get this, we get it down to about 4 or 5 samples, we put it out there and say, right, what do you guys think? And as somebody said on the committee, you need to be careful of this, Lee, because if you designed a horse by committee, you'd end up with a camel. Okay, that's fair enough. I don't want anybody to get the hump with me. Nobody laughed when I did that the first at the committee meeting either, so I thought I'd try it again just to test it. So bear that in mind. We've got a couple of, I think, really diverse designs going right now that we have another meeting coming up, I think it's next week, isn't it? Mm-hmm. To go through that. The other piece of advice that they came back with was, because the owner's very, very keen to make this as inclusive a process as we possibly can with the fans. Also very keen to have it up and running for next year. In order to make that happen, we need to close the doors on this by January. What the supporters committee said is, this is too important to us. We would rather we'll deal with it for another year, and if it took a year to make sure you got the right design in, we'd rather have that than rushing it through and having it just so we could say it's ready for September. And I thought, All right, I'll take that back to the board as well. It's a valid point. Now, whether everybody in here agrees with that or not, I don't know, but it certainly sounds valid to me.
Okay, and just a continuation on before we go on to the question from the floor. That's with regard to the badge. What can you tell us about the kit for next season?
The kit. I looked at a lot of things, and how teams perform, successful teams, what they've done. And the conclusion is, you look at the number of World Cups that New Zealand have won, so we're going to go with all black. You're not buying that, are you? Okay. All right. No, we are looking at the kit from next year. Yes, we recognize the importance of the hoops going all the way around. There are a number of things we're recognizing that we're taking on board, talking to the kit manufacturer as we speak. Hopefully we can get something, early in the new year out on that to show the fans. But again, it's something else I would run by with a supporters consultation committee to say, this is what we're looking at in terms of samples. What do you guys think? But the samples so far, the prototypes that are coming back, I think people will be pleased with.
Will the hoops go all the way around?
Oh, man, you're taking on my thunder. I can't tell you. That's a trade secret. Yeah.
Okay, we will wait and see on that one. We are aware... Sorry, I do apologise. We'll go to the floor. Sorry.
Going back to the revenue streams, you touched basically on the success being based on revenue. Seeing as there will be an end to the parachute payments from the Premier League, and as each day goes on, our stock gets more, as in Charlie Austin, his transfer fee will go down and down. Looking at our revenue streams being extremely limited, how do we move on from here?
Well, that's what I do. I kind of work backwards from, all right, let's take worst case presumption. Let's say, 3 years from now, when the last year of parachute payments, where does the revenue come from then? This is why it's so important from a player development standpoint, while we're making sure we get that production line up and running. It's no different really than the issues that Burnley were facing last year when they were running, or 2 years ago. It was last year parachute payments. Where do they go from there? It's about making sure you start your kids are coming through the system. We've got 4 years to plan right now. It's extremely critical that we go back to, as people told me, back to our roots. We're always known for producing players from within. We need to get back to doing that again. Because otherwise, the revenue streams based on the amount of support we have would say we're not going to be able to compete unless we got somebody writing out a big fat check every year. And I find that does have limited appeal for people, no matter how much money they have.
So sorry, just going back to expectations then. Does that mean that if we don't hit the Premier League this year, it might be a long while in the wilderness of not being in the Premier League, because we've got to nurture those young players, we've got to sell them at the speed to increase our stock and move us forward?
Possibly. It's really funny. Leicester, when they got promoted, when they were actually kind of trying to streamline everything. If you look, they actually spent quite a bit of money. And then we said, right, we really need to kind of pull back on everything, rationalize the payroll and everything else, and then boom, they got promoted. Doesn't necessarily mean you're in the wilderness. Money is no absolute guarantee. I'm loath to even mention the name because I don't want to be splashed over the headlines. But Chelsea right now, spent a lot of money, but it's not a guarantee. There's a lot of things that go into it now. I'm not taking a pop at Chelsea before that goes out. But what I am saying is, just because you spent, well, look at us. Look at what we did in the past couple of years where we spent a lot of money but not really performed up to the level of that salary. I think what you find in the Premier League is there is a more general correlation between salary and league position. That correlation is far less in the Championship.
Okay.
Yeah, hi there, Lee. Good evening. Just going back to your point earlier about player recruitment, if you look back at the players that you had identified in the summer, there's probably about 4 or 5 and not really sort of playing too much football. One's already gone back on loan to the club that we signed him from. People like Angela, Toza, not really playing. Luongo's in and out the side. You go back to how we performed last season where we conceded insane amounts of goals. This season we've got one of the worst defensive records. We've got surely in the summer when you looked at players you would have identified, right, for example, the right back situation. Last year we didn't have an out and out right back. We started the season playing 3-5-2. We then had Isla playing as a wing back. Then he got drafted back as a right back. We'd sold Danny Simpson to Leicester. We brought Perch in the summer from Wigan, who'd spent the last 2 years playing centre half, doing a job at right back. We've now got our captain, who's not really a full back, doing as best he can. We then had a central midfielder playing at right back in the Preston game. Don't you think that in any successful side, you've got to build from the back? And over the last couple of years, when we've actually got promoted, we've actually built from the back. The year we came under Warnock with people like Gawkes and Connolly at the back, they were good players who played in their positions. But unfortunately, this season, you sort of, 2 o'clock, you sort of look at the team sheet, it's like sort of, it could literally be anyone. And if we're going to move forward as a club, this season especially, it's all well and good saying you've got Phillips up front, you've got Fur, you've got Austin, you've got to build from the back. And unfortunately, all those problems with our defence especially stem from the summer with obviously your scouting network not identifying the right players to play in those positions. So how are you going to address that moving forward for the rest of the season?
I'm going to say, what do you think, Les?
No.
Seriously,
no.
You're into football tactics. Football. I don't know. You know, I couldn't tell you a good player from a bad player, and I freely admit that, which is why I don't get involved with it. You know, that's really down to the football side.
But it goes back to my point about a scouting network in the summer. It doesn't look good on your part that you've got about 5 or 6 players who are not really playing, sort of adding anything to the first 11 each week.
From my viewpoint as a chief executive, I'd be saying we're not getting much financial utility. That I'd be looking at from a financial utility standpoint as opposed to a football standpoint, because I think it's really dangerous when chief executives or chairmen start getting involved with the actual football decisions, because I always think, boy, guys, you know, now you're playing PlayStation in real life, and we really need to get experts in to do that. You challenge the experts. Don't get me wrong. I think you're right. You'd be right to challenge it, but I think for me to actually drive that one forward in terms of the players that we should have, that's why Les has been brought in. And if he were here, I'm sure he'd be able to answer your question in full. And Andy, you know, playing. I would have said it was a quarterback myself, but you know, what do I know? I'll leave it to the man who knows football over here. You know, what your thought is. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a great point you've made, actually. As a football club move forward, maybe that's an area that we have to look at more closely, if you like. I think managers and directors of football will already have someone in the mind that they're thinking about for that position. And I know Perch and Conch came in very late in the day in the pre-season. Well, a lot of the pre-season was done. I know for a fact the club have got high hopes for a few of the younger ones, but possibly. And again, a bit like Lee, I'm not privy to the conversations, or I'm not involved in depth in that capacity to really answer the question. But maybe I know they've got high hopes for young Darnell, but maybe they felt in this sort of transitional period maybe it wasn't quite right to, even though they blooded them last year. I can only try and second guess you, but I think you've made a great point. You know, we've signed a few players who aren't regular performers, albeit they're part of the squad, but it's maybe as the club moves forward, and maybe it's an area where we've really got to scrutinise and get better at.
And also from that point of view, we appreciate that is a question best for Les, and obviously Les can't be here, which is why we will be setting up an event so Les can answer exactly those sort of questions for you guys. Okay, question here.
Okay, so Lee, you've clearly got your numbers in front of you, and we're around about 30th ranked in the English pyramid in terms of size, success, call it what you will, and you're measuring it by footfall through the door, which is one way of looking at it.
One way, yeah.
Yeah, it's one way, but there are several other ways. You've been here 4 months tomorrow, which, however long the months are, means you've done your 30, 60, 90 days, and you've done all your listening and talking and what have you. So I'd like to know, in your introduction, you used 2 interesting words. You said success, and the other word you used was glory. Now, I think with any ultra successful club, almost inevitably glory comes with it, but below the absolute peak, you're probably talking about glory as a short-term thing and success as a long-term thing. It's a long-winded way of asking you, really, what do you think, given everything that you've heard, everything that you know, everything that you've seen before, what do you think is success for this club, and how are you going to measure it?
I think the first thing, measure of success, is to deliver what everybody wants to see, which is boys going out there being competitive in every match. That's got to be the first level. I think people, if we lose and nobody's left, they've left everything on the pitch, that's it, they're spent. Most people don't complain about it. It's when you think, did you really put in the effort? Did I really, were you really out there bleeding blue and white? For me as a fan when I came in, that's got to be the first level of measure of success. Be competitive at everything. Don't ever settle for second best, and go out there and give it your all. If you do that, anything can happen. Then in terms of league success, it's where you end up in that league table, and you could end up first in the championship. You could end up fourth in the championship, make the playoffs, get promoted. That would be a measure of success. But I'm not going to complain if I've seen a group of lads who've gone out there and we finished, if we finished eighth, and I know they gave it all, and everybody here said, you know what, we finished eighth, we didn't make the playoffs. You got to hand it to that group of lads. They went out there and they gave it all for us every single game. I think most fans would be happy.
Okay. Just pass the mic forward for us, please.
Okay, my name's John O'Mahony from Kick Up the R's fanzine. We spent a lot of time talking about money tonight, which is important, but I want to kind of concentrate on the heart and soul of the club. Particularly want to talk about Stan Bowles. Now, it was pleasing that the club put on the Stan Bowles Day. They raised some funds for that in the Alzheimer's Society. There's a Just Giving fund, but my colleague here, Joanne, also writes for Kick Up the R's. Off her own back, she has contacted a number of prominent QPR supporters who are willing to put on events for a fundraising year for Stan Bowles. I'll give you some examples. Rodney Marsh has agreed to do a sportsman's evening, all funds raised going to Stan and his family. Michael Nyman has agreed to put on a screening of his film. Glenn Matlock to get help put a concert together, and we've got a venue for that. Robert Elms, prominent London broadcaster, he said he'd love to do everything he can to help Stan. Now, I'm sure we all feel the same way. Now, what I would say to that, myself and Joanne have had a couple of discussions with Andy Evans and Ian Taylor, put all these points to them, and basically, we felt initially that they were receptive, but then the last meeting we had, we felt they were saying to us, well, you go away, you sort it all out to us, you can bring it back to us. Now, you would have to, we might let you have the use of the W12 suite for one event. You would have to pay for security staff, you would have to pay for waiting staff. Now, what I would say, this club has a moral obligation to look after their ex-players like Stan Bowles. Okay, and I did ask them at the meeting we had if they could, I said, who actually makes the decisions here? We're raising it with you two, and they told me you would sign them off, Lee. You made decisions. And I said, well, can you take it to Lee Hoos? Because you're very cautious, you're putting a lot of obstacles in the way. So what I'd really like to know, without going on too much at length, is that's the situation. Joanne has got the agreement of a lot of people that are willing to put on events, prominent fans. What we need is a will from the club to back us and endorse it, because we can do so much off our own back, but we need the club behind us. And we're puzzled and discouraged that the club didn't seem to be behind us. I know those persons weren't the decision makers, but they should have been able to take that up higher. If there's a will, it can be done. And I'll just finish off by making one other interrelated point. We've also been pressing for an ex-players association at the club. Now, this might be a point of interest to Andy, who's an ambassador here. Because, one of these things, the Stan situation arose. Now, if you had an ex-players organisation in place, you would have mechanisms whereby you would be looking after the players' welfare. There's lots of unsung players over the year, might have needed operations, they might be in ill health now. Again, I know these things can't be done overnight. I know that Andy and Ian are in discussions about it, but what would be fantastic would be if the club could come out and make a commitment and put it out there on all the platforms, programme, media platforms, and say, we're going to do this. It might take a year to do this, but we're going to do it. I would say that with Stan, and I would also say it with the Ex-Players Association. Okay, that's as much as I've got to say now.
In terms of the Ex-Players Association, that and an official supporters club were two of the things that when I came in, I had encouraged people to look at. And I do know, I've not had an update on it recently in terms of where we are. I did set some parameters to say, when we do an Ex-Players Association, this is what I want to know. What is they going to do? You know, what is it that the club resources need to dedicate? You know, how does it work? Do they participate in commercial programs? Do they help host lounges? Do they do this? You know, here's the whole list of questions I want answered. Now, and as I also said before, there are a lot of people not here, positions that are gone now that weren't replaced over the summer. So I know I've been pushing a lot at them. If they need some help with that, if you're willing to help in terms of set that up and answer those questions and figure it out, I say great. You know, the more that helps them out. Same thing with the official supporters club. I know Andy Reese has been in contact with some people about trying to get an appetite for that one up as well. Seems to be an appetite for it, and again, I would encourage that one. In terms of the specific events with Stan, just send through your proposals.
They've been given, Lee. They've been given to Andy Evans and Ian Taylor in detail, but for some reason they were not prepared to take it up to you. They just said to us the last meeting, you go away, you organise it all, bring it back to us. Now, with the best will in the world, we want to do everything we can, but we're a pair of individuals. If there's a will from the club, it can be done.
Do I have the resources to do, if you're asking the question, do I have the resources to organise a lot of events? I mean, the Stan Bowles Day that we did here was only happened because Ian donated a lot of his personal time to make it happen. That's what I mean. And this is again where something like if there was an official supporters club, I'm sure there'd be enough people that because the club can't do everything. They literally can't do it. No. I know that. But if there was an official supporters club, this would be the kind of event where I'd say, "Go on, guys. Yeah, we'll help you out with it, but you guys take the lead, and we'll help you facilitate it." I'll speak to them about the. I don't know what the specifics are, so I'm kind of going blind here right now.
Colleagues, they were given a detailed breakdown. All those people that Joanne contacted are only too willing. They will do everything they can to stand. They're prominent QPR fans that I've named. They're all there. All we're waiting for is the club to endorse it. You can let us have this W12 room. You can let us have this W12 room. It's not going to kill you. You're paying.
There's a lot of things that we can do.
to
Advertising
be
on the
honest,
website. There's a lot of things we can help with promotion.
Lee, you're talking about a guy that was voted by the fans the greatest player in their history. Now, by God, if we can't get our act together, there's a collective will. I'm sure everyone in this room would, want the best for Stan. He's going to need care the rest of his life. And all we're asking for is the club to endorse it and put their name to it, and to they could give us this room for events.
All I can tell you is I don't know what you're talking about, so I need to get into that first to find out what you're talking about.
Well,
the only thing I would point out though is, it's not like the club have been idle in supporting Stan. I was here for 3 or 4 weeks when we had the Stan Bowles Day, obviously, and
we thought it was a fantastic day, the Stan Bowles Day, but there needs to be ongoing things. I've got events that I can organise and people are prepared to do. I just need the endorsement of the club and some support. I've got people that are willing to they'll do anything they can to help Stan.
I think the first thing I need to do is look at what you come up with.
You need some communication.
I mean, for all what we say, we're telling you we can deliver them people. So the thing, if there's a will from the club, if you're positive, we can do it.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing is I'll speak to Ian. I'll speak to Ian. I'll speak to Andy and say, you guys want to fill me in on this one, and then let's see where we take it. Yeah.
What we feel too often, we come out of these, we think, it's been a nice evening. We sort of walk away sometimes. You say, yes, that's a good idea. That's a good point. We feel like you've patted us on the head. We've listened to you. You're on your way, and nothing will come out of it. This is something that's really dear to the heart.
Anybody here from the supporters consultation committee? Can you just verify one thing? Is it a talking shop, or do we actually get things done? Do we move things forward? I'd like to think that I've done a few things in 4 months.
Right. It's very hard to answer that question completely. However, the general trend is it's moving forward. I can't give you a specific example of something moving exactly forward, but everything is listened to and everything seems to be allocated to someone to deal with. And I've been quite, what's the word? There's very few people more cynical about this club than myself, because they've taken me to the top of the hill so many times and thrown me down the other side. I would like to say I think your heart is in the right place, and I think things are moving forward, but I don't know the pace of it. However, you do listen and you do get things done. That's my impression.
There we go. I will, first thing is speak to the guys. I'm not here to pat anybody on the head. I'm not even here to throw anybody off a hill.
I mean, you might like to ask them why they wouldn't take it up, to bring it up to you. We specifically requested it.
I will ask that question.
We were very puzzled by that because we said, who makes the decisions here? They said, the term they said, well, Lee Hughes signs things off. So you're the ultimate decision maker for that.
Okay.
So hopefully they've held on to the documents that we gave them, given details of everyone that's willing to help.
Okay, thanks very much. Are there any other questions? We've just gone a little bit over time. If there are any other questions, we've got a question over the back there as well, please, Matt.
Hi, thanks. Just regarding the academy situation, I mean, Les Ferdinand, obviously not here, but he talked about how clubs are often nicking the best players from the local area. And I was just wondering, from a money's point of view, scouts, etc., what's being done to fix that?
Under the elite professional EPPP, elite player
performance.
Yes, thank you. So I didn't want to leave a P out. It's difficult, if not impossible, to stop. The best players, can go to another club, and there's a formula that's set to do it. The best way to combat it is, what Southampton's a great example. You establish the fact that you are a top-notch academy, and establish the most important thing: establish pathway into the first team, as opposed to going to one of the big clubs. It's important, as opposed to going to a big club where, you get a badge, but how many guys are in their first team? If you want to play football, we will give you a pathway to developing and playing as a professional football player.
Okay, but
that's the only way to do it, is by proving that.
Okay, but I just mean, has there been anything to increase to stop these players moving away, except for the pathway, as in scouts and maybe?
No, you can't really stop them from moving away other than say, don't go, because you just can't keep them here. There's certain contractual mechanisms you can do for post-16 once they sign a scholarship, but prior to 16, you can't stop a player from going.
Okay, we just got a question down the front from Vic as well.
Two quick things. One, you keep harping on about the supporters club, or lack of one. You should be looking at why the last one...
I'm not harping on. I'm just saying, is there an
No,
appetite
you
for
brought it up a few
special
times
support?
tonight.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, have you looked into the reason why it folded in the first place?
No.
The fact that there was too much interference from people within the club. That was one of the reasons why half the staff left. And that's not because I wasn't on that. I wasn't on that committee at the time. But that is one of the reasons that I'm saying that's why it folded, because people within the club were interfering with the supporters club itself, which should be, if the people have got their jobs, let them get on and do it. It was running quite fairly before. And the other quick question was, going back to this youth thing, are we doing enough in the schools locally? Because I know of a load of schools local that have never seen anyone from QPR go there scouting kids. They're always from Fulham or Chelsea, all in the local areas. We've not got enough scouts in the junior schools around this area.
Can I just come in on that? Because
absolutely,
I spoke to Perry Suckling regarding the same the other day. Had a bit of a meeting with Perry, just a chat, not a meeting, not a formal meeting. Perry's come in, he's identified that I think there's a percentage, there's only 36% of kids come from the West London area. So they're in the basis of hiring more scouts, getting into different places and encouraging the more local people into the club and try and build the club from that way forward. So they've done a lot of research, they're looking at birth dates, they're looking at various sort of things where people are coming from, sizes, etc., and trying to put a template in place that'll benefit, but that's not going to happen overnight. And as I say, I'm only just nothing to do with me or any decisions I'm making, but I'm just trying to reiterate what Perry's actually told me over the last sort of few days.
What I'm saying is, if the likes of Chelsea and Fulham and Brentford, who have got much better academies than us, they're getting into all these schools and we're not getting into any of them.
Yeah, we've got to try and break that mould, and Perry's identified he's got to get better scouts, he's got to get better coaches in key areas, he's got to get the right people in the right club. The recruitment process, not just from first team, the recruitment process got to start from 6, 7, 8 years old. So they've identified that. But that's good. That is unfortunately, I think, where Lee and the guys and myself bang on about patience. That is going to take time. But the processes have been identified of how we can, or how the football club can attract more youngsters and keep more youngsters and offer a better product, or a product that then compete against the so-called bigger clubs in the area. And Lee's hit the nail on the head. We've got to try and find a pathway for youngsters where people can see if they join Queen's Park Rangers, there is if they're good enough. There's this thing that everyone should be given it. They'll only go through if they're good enough, but there has to be a natural pathway for youngsters who are good enough that they are going to come to QPR and see, if I go there, I might have an opportunity of breaking into the first team, and from that, who knows where I go. So, as I say, that's very much in the forefront, and I think that's part of the strategic planning for the club on a football basis to move forward.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. No,
need a hub.
Couldn't agree more. And as I say, that has been identified over the last few months, but that's going to take a little bit of time to get implemented.
Okay.
And to hear what you're saying there, I mean, obviously West London born and bred, as I know Vic and Paul and people around the room know me. I live in Woking now. I'm in the fortunate situation. I went down my level 1, level 2 football coaching. I teach from under 11 boys now. I'm part of a Meadow sports team that's got 29 teams in Woking. Yeah, we have never ever seen, ever in our history, a QPR scout at our club ever. Yeah, we have teams from Reading, Fulham, Southampton, obviously Chelsea, just down the road, West Ham, Charlton. We've never ever seen a QPR coach at our club.
Well, as someone, if I can just, it's a great point. As someone that does represent the club, I don't think that's good enough. But what I'm saying is that has been.
I phoned the club about a boy in my team. Mentioned them.
Recently?
Very recently, yeah.
Okay.
And he's now gone elsewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, his parents are Queen's Park Rangers supporters. He's a supporter, and he's gone elsewhere. I've never even had a phone call back. Yeah, I mean, something I was going to try and arrange behind the scenes tonight, but it's come out tonight. Yeah. But also, you got to think I know we talk about the West London corridor, QPR and fan base, because West London people have all moved out.
Yeah, sure.
The area is huge now. Yeah.
Yep.
And also now we're outside N25. You need to sort of look at a bigger. Fulham and they're very, very active in these areas with obviously communities, and they spread themselves, and it's just something that obviously the league I think needs to look at in the future. That is, and obviously I grew up in Hayes, yeah. Great, this QPR stuff in my road East Avenue, whatever, this QPR board up. I love it. I think it's great when I go down and see it, yeah. But we also need to be looking at this bigger picture.
No, without a doubt.
Because I mean, to be honest, yeah. On match days, how many people from actually around these streets actually come into the ground? So you need to actually look at and get these scouts out, get employees and people, and get them out there, because you're missing out.
Well, that's what I'm saying on the discussion I had with
and I appreciate exactly what you're saying.
The academy director the other day. They are employed, and I think they went from something like 6 to 30 scouts, so that'll get them into more areas, more games. They're probably looking at bringing youngsters into the club, maybe less numbers but more quality. and develop them.
We're here to help you,
Brilliant.
Andy. We're,
Fantastic.
We're trying to do our best, but when you just get against a brick wall, it's very frustrating. And all I need is, like any football match, you're just looking at the best for your boys, aren't you? That's
of course.
and obviously in my club, it'd be great to see one. I mean, it'd be the most fantastic thing I could ever do as a volunteer in football.
And did you send your club's details into the club?
Yeah, it's all been done.
Well, again, we can, or I can pick that up on behalf of Lee's and just see where we go, because we need, as a football club, we need as much help as we can get. So if people like yourself are offering you help, we got to take that. We've got to take that and move it forward. So thanks very much for that.
Okay, last couple of questions now, if we can, just over there in the corner, please.
So firstly, just think, probably speak on behalf of everyone about the thoughts with the family of Tommaso Trani with the tragic news that came out today. Secondly, as we've alluded to, we've got a squad where we've got some players who've got a lot of Premier League history, and we've got a squad which has got, so we've got a squad with some players who've got Premier League history, and on the same squad we've got players who were brought in to restructure and rework and revamp the club. So we've kind of got a middle ground now. Andy, from your playing experience, how do the younger and inexperienced members of the team stay motivated when they're now probably not going to get in the team because of the shift in expectation, and we're relying a lot on the older players to step up to the mark? And how do we make sure they don't go elsewhere and get frustrated at QPR if they're not getting the playing time?
Yeah, good point. I think I said at the start, I don't like harping back, but I think about my career. I could have gone anywhere as a youngster. I was playing for England schoolboys, but I chose a less fashionable club to try and gain my experience. There's nothing more disheartening for a youngster who is getting a pat on the back every week, is getting rave reports every week, but is continually getting overlooked. But on the flip side of that, youngsters can be put in a little bit too early, and if they don't perform, that can be a little bit demoralising. So it's a catch-22. What I would say with this football club, and credit to Chris, he did blood a few of the youngsters. Maybe you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. People say, well, they weren't quite ready, but at least he had the courage to do that. I think the club needs to have a look at who they got. I know they've got high hopes for quite a few of the boys at various ages, gone 14, 15 all the way through. But I think they've just got to make sure that the timing's right. The players have got to be ready for when that timing's right, because sometimes in football your chance comes when you least expect it, and it's no good getting your one game, you're not quite ready or you're not mentally prepared, and you flop, because the nature of the beast, as we've just discovered, is certainly at first team level, results sometimes dictate decisions and whatever. So it's an awkward one, but you've just got to keep telling those youngsters that they are part of the future of the club. If we're loaning you out, it's not to get rid of you. I know for a fact we've got a few boys out on loan who someone goes to watch them every week and analyses the performance and sits with them and picks the performance to bits or goes through all the positives. So they're not just sent out and left and gone for a month. They are looked at, and sometimes that's the best way for a youngster to progress, is actually play real football. You got the under-18 league, you got the under-21 league. They're there for a reason, but there's nothing better than real football, getting them out into Division 2 or even conference. I've managed in the conference. That is a tough league. That can turn boys into men very quickly, and if it doesn't, you get left by the wayside. So moving forward with the youngsters, we've got a lot of talented youngsters. Maybe now's not the right time, but as we start climbing the ladder, performances and results pick up, maybe we can start blooding and producing our own players. And I think, again, the philosophy of the club, speaking to people further down the line, is there's a dream and a vision. We want to try and get very quickly 3 of our own into the first team squad or start 11. Within 5 to 6 years, 7 years, we want to try and get a third of our squad, whether that's 20 players or 30 players, a third of the squad homegrown. That's the aim. Whether it happens or not is a different matter, but there's a hell of a lot of stuff that's got to go into place for that to happen. But that is the forward vision of the club. We want to try, these guys, Les Ferdinand, people like that, and the people who do the coaching, they want to try and produce our own players for obvious reasons, as Lee alluded to earlier on.
Okay.
So just one thing, because we all have a role to play in developing players, and I have seen it before where you put a 19-year-old kid in a game, and he misplaces a pass, and then the crowd gets on his back, and that's the fine line between learning at that young age to handle that pressure. So for me, it's all about, as supporters, we need to support, particularly the young lads. We need to get behind them as opposed to getting caught up in the heat of the moment and getting on their back if they do something, make a mistake during the game. Because the one thing you can count on with kids is they'll be brilliant one minute,
make mistakes,
and then make a mistake the next minute. It just goes with learning, doesn't it? That's not my expert football opinion. That's human nature, really.
Okay, we'll have a closing message from Lee in just.
So was another question? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Can I just add a point to that? One of the worst things that Neil Warnock did, I thought, was to get rid of the reserve team. Because to my mind, we shouldn't be farming players out. People like Darnell Furlong should be getting their experience playing alongside the likes of an admirable veteran like Clint Hill in the reserves and playing against some, tough nuts from the other team. They should be developed here, really, It seems ludicrous to me that you're scrambling around to get senior players. I think you can have 3 players in the overage players in the under-21 team. To me, it's the wrong way round. Those players should be treating a reserve. If you had a reserve level, they should be treating it like a proper competitive game, and you should be looking to introduce the kids alongside them and learn. That's where they should be learning. That's where they always did in the past.
Yeah, great point. I remember as a 16-year-old kid playing at Cambridge, I used to play in the reserves. Reserves is a thing that's been pretty much done away with for various reasons, but youngsters can grow up very, very quickly in that environment, but unfortunately it's not there at this moment in time. But fully agree.
So it's always a big debate, isn't it, about, do you learn, you go so far in the reserves, but to really go to the next level, you need to go out and play a competitive game somewhere, which is where I think the loan market that you were talking about comes in. Yeah. Even and the conference, people shouldn't discount the conference. I think you're probably right.
It's a good league.
It's a good league to get when people are out there baying for your blood to get into those types of games.
Another point to that, we've got so many players in the squad, and it's ludicrous to me because they're probably just getting a game in a practice game at the training ground behind closed doors, and they should be playing. In the old days, you had the combination league, and they treated it like a proper competitive fixture. It just seems, to me, it's always seemed all wrong. Maybe, that's gone, they're not going to go back. But Neil Warnock actually got rid of the reserve team here. That was his decision.
Okay, we'll have a closing message in a moment from Lee Hughes, and then after that we will do the raffle as well. Just going back to your point about Tommaso Tranni as well, I'm pleased you brought that up for those of you that perhaps aren't aware. Tommaso Tranni's 21 years old. He trained with QPR between 2011 and 2013, young goalkeeper who tragically passed away this morning after a short illness. As I say, he was only 21 years old, and because he never actually played for the first team, I think a lot of people perhaps weren't aware of him, but he trained every day at QPR for 2 years, and the training ground was absolutely rocked this morning by his passing. So I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, we'll now do we'll do the closing message from yourself, Lee, and then we'll do the raffle after that. So just a final message from yourself.
Sorry, just to make sure, were there any other questions? Anybody else want to pop one in? I wasn't sure I had a hand in the back.
Yeah, we've got one at the front.
All right.
Last year, the club done a scheme where the away, it was the FA really in the Premier League, for the away fans, for the free coaches and the half-price match tickets. Why don't the club do something like that this season?
Yeah, last year
for like Middlesbrough, because there's going to be so few fans there. It's going to be
the question's kind of, well, the answer is kind of in your question. It was Premier League, and they gave you like $200,000 to do it. This year, as I already said, I'm struggling with, we got FFP to think about, and I am trying to implement not just cost-cutting measures, but a culture of cost control and cost-cutting measures. So I'm literally looking at every single thing. And you might say, yeah, but that's not such a little thing. It's like, yeah, but it's all the little things that add up that I really need to try and get back in control of, really. Premier League, I'll be quite honest, there's another one that could come back to haunt me. I would be saying, you know what, £20 a game when you go away is plenty for a season ticket holder, because they've already invested in a season ticket. I would take that money, would be my recommendation to the board, and say, all right, we got this $200,000, we should supplement the tickets so that no season ticket holder, because they've already made a sizable investment, pays more than £20 when they go away to a game. in this league, though, we've got our work cut out for us. Even this year, you know, to try and get down to meet FFP regulations, we've got our work cut out for us. And so it's literally every penny, every pence I'm looking at and just trying to make it go as far as I can. Yeah. But I take your point for in the Premier League. I think the other thing, I have to be honest, I'm not a fan of supplemented travel away. I would rather see it in supplementing the price of the ticket, so it's more fair to people who drive, and then everybody who's a season ticket holder gets a share of the benefit for it, and it goes a further way. But how about let's get back into the Premier League, and then I can implement that plan.
There we go. Get in the Premier League, buy a season ticket. You only have to pay £20. Lee
I knew this is going to come back and kill me one day.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. Well, based on that, we'll do the raffle now. The first one is for the signed QPR shirt. If you just take a name out of that hat, please, Andy, and read the name out. The signed QPR shirt goes to
Miss E. Ellie Watson.
E. Ellie Watson. Over
Ellie, do you have a cold?
Okay, we can work. Do you want to come up for your shirt? There we go. The young lad's coming up. Excellent. Round of applause for young Ellie. There we go. Well done. Okay, and for the £100 Club Shop voucher, handy ahead of Christmas.
Lee Hoos. Mr. D. Dennis McCarthy.
The Dennis
There
McCarthy.
we are.
There you go, Dennis. Round of applause for Dennis. Congratulations. Okay, and then just a final message from Lee.
Right. I'd love to tell you I prepared something, but I didn't. Just wanted to say thank you very much for coming out tonight. Again, apologies that Les couldn't be here. He has been given the sick note, though, so he's got a very good, valid excuse. Enjoyed the feedback. And as I say, I really do mean that when I say I do like to hear from everybody. So, you know, don't hesitate to send things into the club. Send it to Andy Reese. I'd love to be in a position where I could answer each and every email, but I don't, because I'm just unfortunately not in that position. But Andy can at least sort it out and say, right, we've got this, and this, and then we can look into it. My senior management team, we're more than happy to sit down and we can talk about the issues and see how we can take the club forward.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
If you like to stay in your seats, round of applause for Lee Hoos, Andy Sinton, and also to you for attending. Thank you very much. And now the cameras are off. I'd just like to invite Julie Hampton up, who just wants to have a quick word with you.